Welcome back to the channel, my fellow pirates and adventurers. We got something a bit different for Tuesday's video today, a manga review of the Long Island arc in the One Piece manga. A much shorter arc, but a very divisive one at the same time due to the oddity and, well, the more somewhat tournament arc of the story of sorts. And for me as a reader, I will say it is a strange start, but has a great ending. And most importantly, that ending sets up the next arc that I finished recently very well. So let's go ahead and get into the review. Now we get into the review portion of this. This is going to be shorter, about 5 questions. I'm going to try to take as much time as possible. Maybe not all that much. We'll see, and depending on what question it is. So with the first question, how are the main characters handled in this? Pretty much everybody was just about the same. Nothing really changed. Nothing really happened. Chopper being insecure. Chopper doing pretty much nothing the entirety of the whole time. Pretty much doing nothing. I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. But these Chopper being fraud allegations are starting to begin here for me, okay? But I will say that gets cleared away in Water 7. So I'll leave it at that. And I mean, nothing really stuck out to me except maybe a couple of moments. Luffy was good. Usopp was Usopp. It's not my favorite character, to be honest. I don't really care for him. The only and ironically enough, and I will mention this if I ever do Usopp, my favorite version of Usopp is the live action one, because it's like Jacob, the guy that plays him, does fantastic with him. And he makes him more enjoyable than a whiny turd. That's how I see Usopp in Free Time Skip. I think he's just a whiny turd. In this, he's still kind of a whiny turd, but kind of not. I don't know. Nobody else really stuck out in this arc except for Zoro and Sanji later, like halfway through the arc. Nami and Robin didn't really do anything of importance except doing the boat race. And Usopp was there. I mean, we got to see a little bit of the impact dial being used, which was great. Which also, it's nice to see these things being used that came from Skypiea, which is fantastic to see. There's really not a whole lot to say about the Straw Hats. They're pretty much just the Straw Hats, except maybe a couple of moments interacting with a couple of one character, and one moment where 2 characters are interacting with each other, which we'll get to that. Were the new characters introduced interesting? Only one in particular, near the end, Kuzan, was probably the most interesting out of the bunch. I could care less about the old man and his horse. Just gonna be honest, it's the whole old cheese gag was not cool. It just seemed kind of nasty. I felt kind of bad that his family left, and he just decided to stay so he can go find his really long horse. And the fact that the long horse was the reason why the Davy Backs fight started, I mean, that's kind of, I feel some empathy here and there, because that's the man's horse he found in a long time. And then, like, immediately after, Foxy pulls up, strolls up, shoots the dang horse. Yeah, said he shoot the dang horse. Why? Why set up this very unimportant character to have something this out of nowhere happen? It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I just do not understand. It's like taking Yajirobe. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, it's like taking Yajirobe, who was introduced in Dragon Ball, shows up in early Z, and putting him in like a filler arc of sorts, putting him in the Garlic Saga, and have him fight Garlic Jr. and not really do anything and just be Yajirobe. Just sit there and it just feels like it would be wasted potential, if you get what I'm saying. Like, there's no point of having this one character here. We could have had nothing to do with that character. Honestly, I hope the live action makes him a better character. Genuinely, because there's... And I'm not saying we need high stakes for a short arc like this. There's some high stakes, because you're going to lose... When it comes to the Davy Back fight, you lose a crew member, which is kind of an interesting idea. Almost like a tournament arc style for a pirate. But this old man, I don't care about him. I'm sorry, I don't care about his horse. Like, I do not care. I don't even remember his name. Like, I don't remember his dang name. Why do you all want me to care about him? Why do you want me to care about this old man who shows up out of nowhere? He doesn't do anything. He's on stilts. Bamboo stilts. They knock him over. That's how they meet him. So let's just go ahead and move on to the next question. What are my thoughts on the Foxy Pirates? Nothing. I'll tell you right here and now. Nothing. Because he's boring. He is a pot-belly Waluigi with a spray-on abs. Exactly. Boring as can be with a rather strong ability. His crew, boring. The idea of it, kind of interesting. Davy Back fight's an interesting idea. However, I don't think it was handled the best way. I wish it was handled better. It should have been more kind of emotionally driven. You know what I'm saying? Rather than just having this one little scene where Chopper cries a little bit. Well, I'll say this much. I do like this scene between Chopper and I completely forgot about this little moment between Chopper and Zoro, where he says, hey, you need to man up and stop crying and commit to the decision, or something like that. And so it's like, that was a good moment. I kind of enjoyed that. But like, when you got a main villain who's not interesting at all, and a very somewhat laid back story, it's like, okay, they're just trying to... It is the definition of a filler arc for me. Unfortunately, I find this boring. I don't think Oda was having... I think he wanted to put on as much effort as he could into this, but also give himself a break, I'd imagine, because it's like Skypiea had a lot in it that, well, as you know, I don't think it's the worst or the best thing. I think it's a mid-arc. It could have been better. But just giving himself a break so he doesn't have all this lore to create for this one arc. And so using it kind of like this tournament arc idea, pirate version of a tournament arc, kind of work. You lose a crew member. If you lose that game the first round, then you can win him back in the next. And it's an interesting concept. I just wish they did a little bit better with it. And I think the henchwoman and the fishman, not really all that interesting. Just they're there. I don't have a lot to say on them. They're just kind of boring. I mean, even the final fight was decent. It was okay. I was so glad Luffy finally beat the tar out of him to get him out of there, to get him out of the story, and then leave him alone and keep him away from the story. Apparently he comes back, by the way. But anyway. Now, I will say this about Fox. I hope he has the chance to be better in the live action. Because you can do a lot with that. You can do a whole lot better with that. I hope they find an actor that makes him interesting. Makes the crew members interesting. Because it's like, this felt like a whole lot of nothing for me. And so there were still some moments I enjoyed. And we'll get to that in just a second. But I want to put a bullet point in this. I want you to understand. There is a difference between a villain who has this great power that can outright defeat anybody. Starting to sound familiar? And seem competent, but not at the same time, and not actually be competent and have nobody really hurt all that much besides maybe the main character. But the main character still comes back? Sound familiar? A lot of you are going to probably say, why are you comparing those two together? Because they're literally right next to each other. It's the arc after the big arc. Inaru, who has this great, huge, the Rumble fruit, this extreme power, was boring with it. He had a lot of cool techniques and stuff, but Foxy doesn't even have that now that I think about it. All he's got is this. Yes. And then his spiked punching gloves. His boxing gloves. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not angry with it. I'm just disappointed. I'm more so disappointed that a lot of people really hyped this arc up afterwards to say, oh, this is like a really neat little filler thing. And I'm like, then there's the other half I've heard that are like, this was not needed. And no, this was not needed. This was not needed. This sucked. Like, it's one thing to have a mid-arc that had some interesting stuff in it, and then another arc that only had 3 things that were interesting. Maybe even 4. And so, we get to our next question. Is there any particular moments I enjoyed? It's the round after the boat race, and we get that moment with Zoro and Sanji where they basically say it's like lay on the floor after getting beat up by those 3 big guys, saying like, hey, you want to help me out for 10 seconds? Yeah. And they just completely destroy the other team. I really like that. There's a lot of camaraderie being built up in that arc between these two, because it's like you can tell they don't like each other, but they realize like, okay, we need to cut the crap for about 10 seconds. Let's get this done. And that made me really appreciate the dynamic of these two. They may fight and they may argue, but they have this ability to be like, all right, cut the crap, let's go. And they do that more and more as they go along. They still fight, but it's like, it works. I like it. I like that moment. I like that moment a lot. And this one was kind of interesting to me, this next moment. And the Afro Luffy introduction, that was actually funny. I see why a lot of people like the arc. I hope that's not the main reason why they like the arc. Just seeing the main character in a huge afro. The afro gives power. The jokes made for that was actually funny. Those were actually funny. That's the one I remember out of it. And then seeing Luffy wearing a boxer's outfit with that afro. That was good. That was actually funny. And it kind of made it easier to go through and enjoy this very stale arc, you know. And it's yeah. Now we're gonna bring this to my next moment, actually, that I found that just takes the cakes of setting up the next arc. This is like, I can't tell you how much this just came out of nowhere in a good way. Like Randy Orton pulling the RKO out of nowhere. Hope you're watching this, TJ. little joke I do to kind of poke fun at my friend at his expense a little bit. He's got something for me, I know. But now this moment, Kuzan being introduced, he, in all sense of the word, for lack of a better word, and pun intended, is a cool character. He was laid back. It's like, yeah, I'm not here to fight, guys. I'm right here. And then that switch just flips out of, I hate saying out of nowhere because I've used that twice already. Like, just in the blink of an eye, that switch flips, and he's just like, okay, now I gotta kill you. And he just freezes everything. He shows off his power. And it's like, my goodness. Like, this guy could legit tear Luffy apart. And we find out he's an admiral, higher than his mentor, who will not be going named until I get to the next arc. And the connection to Nico Robin makes it even more interesting. We don't get much detail at the beginning, but we see Robin just freak out and have this like almost PTSD moment. And I'm like, there's something here that makes me want to keep going. And I do not regret reading that moment. And it is such an interesting thing, taking care of both, not only everybody quickly. He took out the monster trio just like 1, 2, 3, done. Like, freezed Sanji's leg, freezed Zoro's arm, took care of them, done. And completely destroyed Luffy, turning him into an ice sculpture. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy to see that. And from what I know now, makes me really enjoy this character. And there's a lot more to him than that, I will say, which I will not say here. Now this brings us to the next question. My overall thoughts of the arc, not to keep it too simple and one-worded, I felt like it was an arc where Oda just turned a part of his brain off where, okay, nothing uber complicated, nothing too crazy. Let's just have fun with this somewhat. Do some weird, wacky designs, have some weird, wacky moments, and make some jokes. Didn't land for me, honestly. It was a very flat, slow-moving arc, despite being a really short arc. It felt like, even I read it in 2 nights, and it still felt like I was slogging through like an old man with a walker, walking through molasses. This was... I felt like I almost wasted my time. But the ending, it's like eating a stale loaf of bread to the point of, oh, this part is still really good. I want to eat this part more. Where is more of that? And so the next arc is literally a fresh baked sourdough loaf. And you're just sitting there waiting, having to eat this end piece like, I've got to have that sourdough bread. Because this stale sourdough, it's still sourdough, don't get me wrong, but it's stale. And that one piece, ironic, is still fresh. That only one part that's still fresh. And I want the actual fresh thing. And oh my goodness, I'm going to say it again. That next loaf was hefty and delicious. And so, man, I'm hungry, by the way. So that's why I'm using a lot of food analogies. And I like to cook, so it's like, I just wanted this to be kind of just like, hey, turn your brain off and have fun. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that with this arc. It just felt like it is just too weird for me to just like, not too weird. Let me take that back for a second. Not too weird. It just felt bland and boring, and it just made weird jokes that worked and some that didn't. The villain of the arc was boring. I was happy to see him get the crap beat out of him so we can get the story to move on and kind of have a great character moment where he basically, Luffy just affirms that, like, yeah, I care about my crew and I'm willing to go through hell and back to get them, which kind of also sets up the next arc pretty well as well. And so, I mean, with that being said, that's all I really got to say on that. Well, I was going to say a great way to kick off some Rust, but just to be honest, I feel a little, not winded, but bored. But I'm glad I got to do something other than failing a 7-year-old challenge video format for like the billionth time. Dang. Has it really been that long since that's been out? Sheesh. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here and watching me sit here or do weird stuff and review more One Piece. I mean, the last review was Skypiea, and I look forward to doing the next arc. I really do. If you couldn't tell from me being excited and making that food analogy. Man, thanks again. Seriously, this is going to be a lot of fun this year. If you guys want to be a part of the Bernhard Pirate Brigade, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for future uploads and other discussions of the such. Thank you again. This is the Captain signing off. I'm out. Peace.